Hello, everyone. A very good afternoon. We welcome you to this track session, Securing the Bank of the Future. And to set the context, we are constantly evolving and adopting technology at an unprecedented scale. And especially this pandemic, it has pushed our appetite for technology almost 5 years into the future. So keeping that in mind, the future of the banks are also integrating next gen solutions, adopting cloud, going contactless, and a wide uh, array of products and solutions are being developed to facilitate the new normal. So while technology is happening at an unprecedented scale, we also need to be cognizant of the security aspect. So without building locks, you cannot actually build a safe. So the main thing over here is like while the banks of the future are developing and progressing at a very rapid pace, security is also being growing and developing to counter your rapidly increasing scale of attacks and also to make the business more resilient. So, without further ado, I would like to bring on stage my panelist, Mr. Karthik Shinde. He's partner at ENY. He would be moderating the session. We also have Mr. Shomiran Das Gupta, who is the founder of Net Monastery. He will be our panel member. And we have Mr. Venu Rao. Hi, Karthik. I see you first. So, please go ahead, give a brief introduction. And sorry, we also have Mr. Shomin Das Gupta. He is the founder of Net Monastery. And finally, we have Mr. Venu Rao. He's the co-founder and CEO of VSecure app. Over to you, Karthik.
Thanks, Anand. Thanks for the introduction and welcome everyone. Hi, Venu. Hi, Shomi. Pleasure to have you in this session.
Absolutely, pleasure to be here.
Like we discussed, instead of having a panel discussion where I moderate the session, I think we are going to take turns, discussing insights on what we have seen on the ground and translating that vision to, what can, go wrong or right for the banks of the future. And the topic of the discussion being how do we secure, security in the future of banking in that sense. So thanks to both of you for taking the time out and getting into this discussion. And what I would like to just open up this discussion, throw up a scenario of sorts, where we all read this, that the banks of the future, and I think to some extent we are seeing less number of people actually going to the banks and doing transactions in their daily banking needs. Everything now happens from the mobile phone.
Right.
But as we move forward and as the backend infrastructure also goes onto the cloud, there'll be more of the processing that used to happen, the analytics that used to happen. Soon, eventually, everything will move onto bigger, data infrastructures, so that the bank is more connected, more responsive, and as they say, the bank is going to be invisible, right? And as soon as we see that reality happening, it also poses a question on security, right? And that's why we are all here to discuss the security needs. So maybe I'll just throw open a question to both of you. What have you seen, in your respective domains? And then, like Shomi said the other day, the question can come back to me as well. So I'm all
yes, it will. We promise you it will.
So over to you guys. What have you seen? Basically, point number one being trends, in terms of differentiators that from traditional banking to the banking of the future, and maybe your 2 minutes on that, and then we can probably delve in. What are the security loopholes, etc., and we'll discuss those points.
Okay, you want me to go first?
What do you show me?
All right. So thank you so much for the opportunity. I think it's a pleasure being here. Virtual conferencing is all very tricky one, but yeah, I think that's going to be part of life. So, couple of things. I want to say it out loud and bold, right? Everybody used to think about data residency challenges, and therefore cloud is going to be unsuccessful, and it's never going to be mainstream. It's always going to be hidden in the e-commerce, world in India. All that is a broken barrier, right? Right now, I think let's put it out there first. I mean, in the first 5 minutes, that cloud is reality. Uh, and all our major banks, all our major financial institutions, um, some of them are doing it in a small way. Some of them have committed big numbers to the cloud. Some of them have committed data centers to the cloud. Some of them carrying out core banking applications over the cloud. So uh, everybody has got a roadmap. Everybody is moving towards the cloud. So that cloud is a reality. Now we were very settled with cybersecurity being a part of the on-prem environment, a closed group environment. Very often we hear customers talking about, air-gapped networks and all that. So that's going to have its own diminishing value. So how are we going to adapt to that concept, right? How are we going to adapt to cloud is one challenge. The other challenge that we are seeing is because thanks to the pandemic, right, that workforce is gone offline, right? We would be able to, we used to have clear visibility on where people were, what they were doing. They were logging onto the Active Directory. We were pushing policies. We were controlling that environment, right? So now that environment is broken, right? And we've not had enough time to sort of think about how we are going to construct cybersecurity around our workforce. So I think these two, as an opening statement, I think is going to be theme of this next hour. We're going to deliberate over and over again. We're going to roam around and discuss these things over and over again. Okay, over to you, Venu.
Yeah, as you rightly said, Shomi, in last 1 decade, we have seen the kind of technology advancements that happened in banking system is like phenomenal. And
Yeah.
obviously, we see the kind of touch points today. So even, with the help of a mobile app, one can have a bank account, open a bank account, right? So there has been a tremendous, kind of a paradigm shift from what it was 10 years ago and today. And we can definitely foresee what the future going to be with the help of blockchain and all coming in place. So, yeah, what I believe is like, anything and everything which is online can be hacked. They can't shy away. They have to be online. Cloud is very much real, like you rightly said. It's very much real, and the penetration of cloud going to go high and high. All we need to understand is, as Karthik was talking about, like an invisible bank. Absolutely, that's right. Anyone can, transfer funds from anywhere across the globe. And these days, buying cryptos, all these things are happening. So what we need to understand is it's good that the banks are adopting the new technology and helping the end customers to the banking is made easy. But on the other side, we also need to understand that the what do you call the threat layer is increasing. So how can we, as a cybersecurity company, can help banks and banking systems to ensure that they can do their business smoothly without even thinking about security.
Karthik, your turn.
Right. Yeah. No, I think, all these points made, I think from when you mentioned about threat landscape and as we see it, I mean, we've already seen from an invisible bank perspective, we've already seen wallets coming in. You can do payments from WhatsApp, and God knows what enablements will come, in the future where, of course, globally you can make payments from your Apple Watch as well. It's still to hit Indian shores, but as soon as that happens, we could do that too. And obviously, with all of these things, and I would like to call it IoT in banking, start coming in, and as an how the devices keep getting connected to the overall banking ecosystem, your threat landscape obviously changes. Now there are two aspects to it, right? One is, how do you control the external growth, controls security in the external growth. So more and more devices get connected. Probably your car will be connected to, your bank. You already have connected cars now.
Yeah.
You will have wallets. You will have your banking apps on your car ecosystem. Maybe they would not be visible, but your car will be able to automatically pay the petrol pump and so on and so forth, right? So how do you then see and control that ecosystem, and what measures do you take internally? And let's focus our shift. Let's shift our focus to internal now. That all of these external elements are growing, and the threat landscape is changing. So, what do you need to do? To secure the bank internally. Do you need, and maybe this question is to both of you. What measures have you seen in addition to the traditional SOC? And I'll give you my 2 bits on what I have been hearing from clients in terms of the additional security measures that are being put in.
Right.
But would love to hear that from you in terms of the emerging areas from a threat landscape, and how do banks take security seriously for this new era in banking.
Yeah. So, so to me, I think the major shift dimensionally is, I mean, we'll talk about these. I'll focus on cloud and workforce, sort of disintegration, right? And decentralization of the workforce. I think the bigger challenge that we're seeing in the cloud is that all of us assume that, hey, listen, whatever we are doing on prem, we're just going to take the same thing to the cloud, right? And hope that will work. That unfortunately hasn't worked. So, I mean, cloud has come up with a different set of challenges. A lot of applications are using cloud native, services, and those have their own, security challenges, access control, and the way they manage service delivery is completely different from having a Oracle server confined in a service. So I think that is a new learning for us, and most of it is where you're going into cloud compliance or you're looking at IAM at the cloud level is a different ball game. You're seeing new products coming up in cloud audit, cloud access management. You're looking at new cloud, even cloud streaming. So, for instance, in the business that we are in, we are doing cybersecurity monitoring using cloud stream providers where we are bringing all that data. So earlier it was very simple. We were actually, syslog was giving us all the information, and we were essentially, aggregating all that information, making sense. But all that now has changed. The dimension of that has changed. We are trying to go close to the data source rather than stay on prem and be able to, bring that workload home. On the workforce management, again, I think this is huge, because earlier I would say that, oh, you come to office, you can't use a USB and all that. So all that's over. That dimension is dead, right? Suddenly you're seeing in this last 1.5 year, we were very, if you see the adoption of endpoint response product, right, or even managed detection response product, right, we were seeing a lot of, sort of pushback, because it's a big thing, to go and install agents on every laptop and monitor them and push policies. But that's become a norm now. I mean, there is no way without having a decentralized cybersecurity monitoring or access management system, which goes beyond the boundaries of the office, right? I think that, to me, these two are the major trends that we're seeing, at least at the enterprise level, right? There is, of course, the user end level, which I'm not talking about, which I think Venu and Karthik, your genius is at, right? I mean, how the user pattern, how a user was interacting with the bank has changed as well. I mean, so push that question to both of you, right?
Yeah, Shami. So you're talking more from a cloud perspective. So let me add the other aspect to it. As we know that there are multiple digital assets in place, any bank, and be it when you're talking about cloud, so you have applications, be it web or mobile, you have network in place. Though you're talking about completely cloud, but we need to understand the fact that there are a lot of networking devices that are in place, routers, firewalls, switches, and we're talking about IoT devices in the banks, POS machines given by the banks to the retailers, and so on and so forth. So there was an instance, not related to banking, but an airlines was hacked because of the entertainment um, thing that's there in the flight, right? So an attacker got intruded into that particular entertainment system, and from there he was able to get access to the pilot's dashboard or so on and so forth. So similarly, imagine that there is an IoT kind of a printer or any other device that's been there in the bank, and that could be an entry point. So what I'm trying to say over here is that when we're talking about threat landscape, so not just cloud, we need to consider about the all other devices in place that today the banking, finance, or all these industries are using to ensure that, of course, all these things have been done because of rapid digital transformation and making sure that customers, enjoy the technology for their advantage. But as I said, on the flip side, we also need to understand that these devices do come up with their own vulnerabilities or their own threats. So there should be policies driven by be it BYODs or be it any kind of a device security in place. So not just from a regulation or a compliance perspective, but also I believe that banks should come up with pretty good policies in place to ensure all the digital assets that being used are thoroughly secured with different protocols. So this is what my take is with respect to the different devices that's being used in the bank.
Yeah, and Venu, and I think this should be an ever evolving policy, because today we are looking at maybe some of the digital channels, assets, etc. Tomorrow, the bank of the future would have a differentiated landscape altogether, right? Like I gave the example of the connected car, and
Right.
that having an banking API.
Right.
Would you wait for RBI to release a guideline saying that now implement a policy for this, or would you proactively do a threat assessment or a risk assessment and say, hey, you know what, my landscape is changing, and this is where I need to do policy level changes,
Correct.
and then incorporate it further down to what controls I need to put in, and controls from a perspective how it could be made safer while making it easier and not become a roadblock.
Exactly.
Because generally all CISOs are looked at as roadblocks where they shouldn't be looked at, right?
Correct.
And in their
Unfortunately,
defense, unfortunately, and in their defense, I think we should be moving towards how to make life easier with security and not harder, right?
Absolutely.
So that would be my point, right? But coming to this specific point, and I think RBI has just released a master direction on digital payments and
Right.
digital payment security, and that's absolutely taking into consideration the upheaval of the digital payment channels that have emerged in the country, and all the banks are jumping on the bandwagon, and rightly so. And you will see these specific statements saying that do have a digital payment security policy, right? So earlier we had the information security policy, then we had the
that's
cyber
cyber.
security policy, and I still remember some clients coming back to us
What's
saying
the
that,
difference?
hey, we already have an information security policy. Now, why do we need to have a cyber security policy? And guess what? 5 years down the line, we have a digital payment security policy, right?
Absolutely.
So decoding that, and representing it appropriately to even the regulators, and at the same time, in essence, securing the organization. I mean, you could write 10,000 documents, to satisfy your compliance needs, but is it really, the problem that you're trying to solve, right? That would be my submission to this point here.
Yeah. 100%, Karthik. Whatever you said is absolutely right. Companies, the banks should be really proactive enough in adopting technology and also making sure that they come up with policies, or they come up with, what are the things that are in place to ensure that the new technology shouldn't be, the security shouldn't be a roadblocker for these new technology, adoption of new technology. So I always listen to this, as you rightly said, CISOs or security is a roadblocker for digital transformation. And unfortunately, that shouldn't be the case. So there should be systems in place wherein, hey, all the banks, I have a data, like I have so many digital assets, like 100 assets here in cloud. I have applications. I have third-party vendors in place, right? But at any given point of time, I should be able to know what is the risk for me with respect to all these different assets. If I can quantify that risk, that's fantastic. So that's where the CISO's life is very easy.
So Karthik, question for you. What do you think in the digital payments guideline that has come? First of all, I mean, congratulations. I mean, if all of us have traveled, and my experience personally is Indian banking system is extremely ahead, right, and stable as compared to anywhere else, and the maturity that Indian banks have got, right, is nowhere to be seen, right? I mean, in pockets in maybe east of Africa, but nothing, right, that exists anywhere else. So first of all, I think congratulations to them to have come this distance in a country which is usually seen as a laggard, right? And being an early adopter in most of these technologies. This is one, and provide cutting edge services, right? Digital payment first to adopt. Yeah, I mean, online banking first to adopt. And congratulations to RBI that they have been able to provide guidelines before they were required.
Right.
So now, time for the question, Karthik. So I think when you look at the digital payments guideline that has turned up, right? How do you see? There are two parts to it. One part that applies to banking and the banking sector. Right. The other one is we have digital payment providers that are mushrooming all over, which are erstwhile not, very strongly regulated. Right. So in terms of technology adoption, the digital payments providers have adopted cloud, adopted top end technology very quickly, but because they were not under a guide. How do you see that landscape change now, right? And how do you see it change, and in what direction are we going to, are the banking systems and digital payment providers, are they going to merge in the future? What do you see happening?
I think that's a very interesting question, Romy, because the trend that you're seeing in all the fintechs and the
Yeah.
startups in the financial services space, I think they are born to be acquired, right? The end objective is probably a bank buys me off, or it becomes such a big startup, and startup becomes a unicorn, and then it becomes the Paytm, right, of the world, and Paytm's case study is discussed globally, not
Right.
just in India. But you become the Paytm of the world, right? Then a regulator starts imposing. You get a banking license, and then you become a bank eventually, and all the regulations get slapped onto you. I think that's a very interesting question of what happens to them and what is happening, right? Point number one, when fintechs get merged into a bank and it becomes a product, right?
Super bank.
I don't think security is usually an afterthought in most of the fintechs and financial services startups that I've seen, quite frankly. Security is an afterthought. And then, the whole cycle begins when it gets plugged into a bank. And then the bank says that, hey, you know what, we need to do XYZ. I wouldn't name any clients here, but I know of one bank who, did one part of their banking, and I wouldn't even want to name a specific component or a part, otherwise it will be very evident. But one part of banking. And guess what? RBI mandates now that any third party that you have plugged into your ecosystem, whose code or program you're using, you have to have a source code audit done, right?
Correct.
Now, turns out that that the startup or the fintech has not probably done its due diligence, and is now struggling to kind of be complied
Pop up.
to
Yeah.
to the regulation. The challenge being, now you have the regulator giving you a deadline to comply against,
Sure.
and then you have internal challenges of finding out a third party and then getting things done from them. All I'm saying is you could have avoided this whole cycle if you incorporated security by design. I understand, tomorrow if I
Easier
start
said
my
than
own,
done.
fintech,
Yeah.
security will always be an afterthought.
Yeah.
Well, not for me, because I would, being a cybersecurity guy, I would probably think of it before. But I can understand it can be an afterthought.
Yeah.
But I think for a critical element like a part you're
Payment service
going
product.
to play with transactions of people, I think security should be made a mandatory point right from the start, right? And that's not happening.
Sure.
And I think even established ones, took some time to go through that rumble, become a bank, become a payments bank, and after becoming a payments bank, they started getting into this whole
Regulated
cycle of
environment.
compliance, etc.
Right.
Yeah, and it was definitely a challenge.
Venu, you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I'm like Shumi, as Karthik rightly said, today banks are communicating with so many startups, fintech startups, using their products and all. So yeah, what happens next, we really don't know. Like, banks acquiring these startups and becoming a super bank, that is definitely a possible. But yeah, again, these guidelines are very important. Like, I'm very happy with the way RBI is actually functioning, the kind of guidelines they are coming up with. Not just a pen test report. Now they're even asking for a code review report if you're using any third-party APIs or products.
Yeah.
That's a commendable job from the RBI.
Yeah.
Well, and what do you guys think about? Yeah, Karthik, you want to say something?
No. Go ahead, Shumi.
So, and what do you think about the dimension, right? I mean, are we going to have? We're obviously in the last week. Last week has not been very good for the fintech world, where a lot of news of data pilferages essentially come out. How do you see? I mean, what's your experience working with? Because when I look at the fintech startup space, you see very, very bright people, very passionate people working to solve a major challenge and push the envelope further. So and how what's your experience been when you work with them? What kind of cybersecurity? Because I have seen some of the best minds in cybersecurity being employed by these guys, right? And they think differently. They're not product oriented. They love to build their stuff. And but how do you see that change? Is that going to be this bespoke model that they adopt, right, as a core of their development strategy? Is that how it's going to remain, or are they going to come into the fold and say, okay, compliance requirement, I need to buy a magic quadrant product and sort things out for myself and check the box? What do you think is going to happen there?
Karthik, are you answering, or you want to?
You want to take that?
Yeah, Karthik, go ahead.
I can. Okay, go ahead, Karthik.
No, go ahead, Venu.
Yeah. So Shomi, I was fortunate enough in working with a few of the fintech guys in the last few years. So it's been a great experience. We worked with peer-to-peer lending companies. We worked with companies having payment gateways, different kinds of fintechs. The attitude or the passion of the founders of these fintechs is phenomenal from a security standpoint, right? I was like spellbound talking to the CTOs and CEOs of these fintechs. So, as you know, though there are compliances and regulation given by the RBI, SEBI, or any other regulatory bodies, but these founders they asked us that, hey, it's not just that we want to do kind of an assessment to suffice or just put a checkbox to these compliances, but we are very keen in defining the security roadmap for our company. It's that, what is that we need to do to ensure that we are secure, and whoever is buying our product or using our APIs, they shouldn't have any problem. And for that, we want you to design a security roadmap that helps us in adhering to not just compliances, but also involving the security culture into their company.
Right.
That is like
Yeah. They work very hard on that, actually.
yeah, absolutely. I'm like, very, very, I'm like really fortunate enough talking to a few of the CTOs and CEOs of these fintechs. The clarity that they have from a security standpoint is like far, far ahead when compared to the other tech companies. But these guys, they know they are in the business of finance or fintech, and they know what kind of threats, and hence they want to make sure that the foundation itself is pretty strong from security standpoint, and they have a great vision, like in next 6 months, 12 months, 24 months, this is where our company going to go, and we want security to be aligned with our goals, and we're helping a lot of companies in that fashion.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So one other interesting point is the investors actually asking for ROI in cyber, right? The most favorite topic of all the CISOs, which is dreaded topic, and we've seen this in a number of fintechs, startups, investors, fintechs, established companies. The board is asking tough questions on, hey, you just procured a SIM solution, you have your own SOC, 6 months back. I want to see results. How many dollars have you saved? How many real attacks have you thwarted and real threats have you stopped? So that it's justified that we invested so much of money in securing and not running the business, right? Well, the question itself is wrong, because security is an integral part of your business. But
say that to the investor.
But thankfully, I think on the flip side, all the ransomware incidents, etc., have been just helping, change that perception of the board, because now they know that the threat is real. But on the flip side, they are now very interested to know that, can this happen to me, right? And in the future, let's come back to the topic, security, securing the bank of the future. But I think in the future, when the landscape changes, I think these questions will just change dimensions, just manifold it into, multiplied by 100 or whatever, right? Is that, hey, can this ransomware be then extrapolated to not just my systems, but my end users, connected device, and so on and so forth, right? And what's the security? So, and I would like to, kind of, today also, you will see a lot of incidents happening on the end user side, where end users are fished for, information,
right,
financial fraud, and so on and so forth.
correct.
Tomorrow there'll be no human.
Yeah.
Tomorrow it'll be a connected device, for all you know, or it could be an interceptor, just plugged in on the road, intercepting your transactions or what have you, right? So it could be anything. So extrapolating that question from the board, saying that what is my ROI in security? What is our ROI in cybersecurity? To what do you think? What's the future? And then now circling back to this, from this question to the first point that we started, saying that at a strategic level, at a policy level, have I thought through my threats? Have I categorized, cataloged my threats? What is going to happen? What can go wrong? And have I put all my controls in the right place? And trust me, and I don't know if you agree to this point, But today, if you ask a CISO or a CIO, what is my actual IT landscape, and am I adequately, protected? The
Correct.
answer in private you will get is, boss, I don't think I really know my landscape well,
Landscape.
Correct.
right? And show me, to your point, add cloud to it just for
Yeah.
fun, right? Then the entire equation changes, and that's rapidly changing. I think yesterday it was, do I know my 10,000 IT assets, right?
Oh.
Today it's 10,000 IT assets which I have to know any which ways. Plus, you know what? I have plugged onto the cloud, so I
Yeah.
really don't understand my complexity. So I think that's the challenge
Correct.
which needs to be addressed.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think the bigger, as we go forward, it becomes more and more daunting, right? Is the fact that we are all, moving and discovering at the same time, right? And the
Yeah.
good thing is that we are pushing the envelope in terms of providing new services and rolling out newer offerings for the customer and the banking sector. And I think that's going to be India's lead, right? And that we will continue to innovate and provide easier ways of transactions, faster transactions, stable banking system, right? And those kind of things that we will keep on innovating on, right? I mean, you remember there was a time where we were lauding, NEFT transactions and how amazing that was, and you could do online transactions, and then suddenly we are in the UPI zone where we are paying, paying for 1 kg apples, right, from our phones. I think this is, and this envelope is going to keep on moving from the threat perspective, right? I mean, this is something that I would want you to chime on as well. The moment all these, whether it's a fintech, innovating quickly, or it's a bank moving slowly but aiming high, uh, the right now it's the world of the adversary, right? I mean, how we are getting actively targeted, it's worse than ever before, right? I mean, earlier we were worried about banks getting defaced and all that, and we would always think that once we get our patching right, and I think we'll all be very secure, right? And we will manage to get our patching right, and we're still doing worse. So, so how how are we going to traverse this adversarial thinking part, right? And how are we going to work with the knowledge that we have, and be able to also innovate fast enough, right? Now this is a question for service providers, cybersecurity thinkers, product builders, right? I mean, three of us over here are from that side of the environment. How do you see, yourself being challenged to think beyond what's already available out there and what's available in the US search website, right? And we all know about Exchange, so
Yeah.
the Exchange is already old. What's going to happen next, and how do you keep up with that, and how do you keep imagining where we are going to go? I mean, this is a big challenge that I face, and I don't have a clear answer. Yeah, curveball. Who wants to go
I was just going to say, I think this is also Showme's product problem statement, and he wants some ideas.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely,
No, I think,
absolutely.
no, I think, to foresee, something that can go wrong is absolutely a difficult topic. Uh, Obviously, the way people have done it before is to listen on and hear on, what can go wrong and what has gone wrong elsewhere. I mean, who anticipated? I mean, before SolarWinds, there was similar attacks,
Yeah.
but no one really paid heed to it. It's only when SolarWinds was blown out and analysis came, and I don't think we are doing much on SolarWinds. I think organizations who got impacted did some serious stuff in terms of mitigation, but
Hmm.
it's fizzled out now because I don't have SolarWinds. What can happen to me? Or I do have something similar, and they could get compromised.
Correct.
And do I need to take certain measures, for something similar that might happen, right? But to envisage that, something like this would happen, uh, usually you need to, and I go back to my point, you need to hypothesize, what's my
Exactly.
landscape going to look like,
Right.
Yeah.
and what are those possible scenarios that we can come up with, right? I mean, who would have thought that after PhonePe and Paytm, an entire ecosystem of fraudsters in Jamtara would come up and become a business model for them, boss.
Yeah.
So no one really thought. I mean, you can
Absolutely.
trick a user to scan a QR code,
Right.
or just do a collect UPI, kind of a payment, and then actually not trick the user, but force the user to enter an amount and say that it's a comment section and do the transaction, right? I mean, it's always the human element, I know, but still, so so enablers will always be there, but to think through, it's a tough part, Shomi. It's a tough part to think through, but yes, can be done, but not done these days would be my
Then
short answer.
how do you bring, that's one side where you have a group of people innovating and keeping up with the curve. How do you keep bringing the entire infrastructure along with us move forward fast enough so that the gap between innovation in detection capability and adoption,
Yeah.
right, and implementation is the smallest one? Yeah, Venu, your turn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
maybe before Venu
Yeah.
speaks, just one small point is that,
Yeah.
here we are talking about the unknown, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Today, just a very small example, you are going to the cloud, right? So you get all the approvals, you're going to the cloud. Today, do we even assess that after that I have gone to the cloud, how has my threat landscape changed,
Oh
Exactly.
yeah,
right? Do
absolutely.
you envisage?
Hmm.
Right? You might do a pen test to comply, but do you really tell your security consultants, your vendors, saying that, hey, I want to know how this could be broken, right?
Yeah, or
The
tell me what I
objective
don't know.
is, yeah, or tell me what I don't know about this,
Yeah, absolutely.
particular thing. Don't just give me a report.
Oh yeah,
Sorry,
absolutely.
Venu.
No.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We've made a lot of points, Karthik. So, it's really tough to really foresee or, what kind of threats are going to happen. Like SolarWinds was kind of an eye opener or kind of a wake up call for most of the companies. When I believe that, the CIO or the CISO should always think that they could be.
Okay. Good.
Looks like,
This is a commercial break. So I was saying that the CIO and the CISOs they should be prepared. They should be ready. At any given point of time, they could be next. They can also be a victim of those kind of attacks. And as rightly Shomi said that when there is so much of cloud adoption, so they know that their IT landscape is growing and growing at a very fast pace. Similarly, the security needs all measures needs also be taken care of, and not just from a policies perspective, but there need to be a real action in place. So having one
Right.
vendor or two vendor doing a pen testing is honestly not the solution. There are a lot of things that companies or banks needs to take care of, especially the way things are growing. The way things are shaping up these days from a technology standpoint.
Absolutely.
all right.
Right. Right. Thank you, gentlemen. We are,
We
I
have
think,
Anand
running
here.
out of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you. Firstly, I'd like to thank you, Venu, thank you, Karthik, and thank you, Shom, for an wonderful session. It was really insightful and very educative. And yep, thank you for your time and all your insights. And yeah, and for the audience, we
Thanks a
will be
lot.
starting the next session
Thanks,
at
Anand.
4:30. And yes, rest if you need to add a last few words, please go on.
Yeah, thanks Karthik. Thanks Venu for wonderful insights. I think this is a lot of learning for all of us, right? Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, DSCI, for giving me the
Absolutely.
opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Nice. Thank you.
Thanks, Anand.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks everyone for watching. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.